This is about to be real awkward, I fear. At some point in the last decade, I fell out of love with platformers. The last one I think I really engaged with was probably Super Mario Galaxy, and at this point, that's nearly 20 years old. I played a couple since then. I tried ukulele, I beat Super Mario Odyssey, and they were good, but they never really scratched that itch, and then the itch just went away on its own. It never came back. That is, until recently, when I was making a video on the other channel, Lunistice managed to find its way into my Steam library. Lunistice is about as simple of a 3D platformer as you can get. You run through a level, you collect swans, and you try your best not to fall. You can also find the letters of the main character's name on side paths to spell Hannah, but you can progress without doing so. That's pretty much it. That's the whole game. Video's over. What makes it unique is how perfectly it captures the spirit of that PlayStation 1 era of games, and to be real, that's probably when I played the most platformers in my life. I was a kid, they were accessible, and they were family safe. There was just a lot of them in my library. They're what we played when I had friends over, they're what I played with my family members. There was just, everything was platformers. There was nothing else. I'm not a huge sucker for nostalgia necessarily, but when it's done really well, it's hard not to appreciate like the attention to detail that the individuals have put in towards having it feel right, and Lunistice feels right. Particularly graphically, I've seen some grittier games do the 32-bit PlayStation era look well, but this is one of the first games like in the visual style where it's very vibrant and colorful, and I love it. The levels are really whimsical. They all have their own like unique palettes and gimmicks, generally speaking. The soundtrack, though I'm not playing it in this video because I'm not sure about the copyright there, is really wonderful. It sounds great. Like, I wish I could play it for you confidently at the moment. Importantly, the controls are also really snappy and responsive, which is nice because controls feeling bad can like tank a platformer even if the rest of the game is perfect. You've got a double jump plus a spin attack that gives you a bit of hang time in the air, so you can correct your mistakes and parkour through the levels at speed, which is great because Lunistice does feel like it's meant to be played fast. There's a lot of Sonic inspiration in this, not just in the menus, but in the pacing as a whole. Most of the stages have 2 levels, except for the final one, I think, which has 3. With the gimmicks changing every couple of stages due to the game being short, it didn't get particularly stale, though most of the stage gimmicks kind of overlap with each other to an extent. They're really quite simple, but considering I was mostly focused on having a good time, like jumping around and avoiding enemies, I found it really what did I write on my script here? That is not English. I found it really refreshing to not have much distracting me from enjoying the game. Why is this worded so awkwardly? Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I found it refreshing to not have that much else going on. I just got to enjoy running through the level, collect swan, and go through gate. That's it. That's all I had to do, and it was awesome. Now I'm gonna start complaining because you can't have a video like this without complaining, and I wrote some critiques that I have. They're not big critiques, but they are critiques in the end. One thing I really wasn't huge on was the enemy variety. As in, there is no enemy variety. You'll get some variety in the final stage, but it's just recolors of the enemies you've already been facing for the entire game up to that point. It would be a much bigger deal for sure if the game was longer, but I will say it still got repetitive over the 2 hours that I played, and that speaks to how little variation there was. Then again, I'm not even sure how much that really matters, because the enemies can all just be brushed aside with your spin attack anyway, and then they're moving roadblocks more than anything else. I guess if you're gonna skimp on something in development process, considering it's a cheap game, that's probably the place to do it. They're all gonna serve the same function anyways. I'm just gonna brush them off and keep running at speed. Man, how do you guys who do scripted videos do this? And how do you time things? Like, I think I'm gonna be short. I'm getting distracted. Let's get back to it. Another complaint I have with the game is that the collecting isn't really fun. Now, is that a complaint exclusive to Lunistice? Absolutely not. I think if you were to ask me about any platformer that I played in my life and beaten, I would probably have that same critique. Beyond that, it's just not overly intuitive in Lunistice. One of the things I kind of noticed is that you might commit on a path to find a secret, like one of the letters, only to realize you missed another letter earlier, but the only option to get that is to finish the level and start the whole thing over. Though I do understand that the game is being sold on replayability because there's only a handful of levels in it to begin with, and it's like they put it also in the Steam description that the replayability is part of the appeal. It can just be a little bit tedious to keep track of all the backtracking, but I'm also aware that for somebody, this is going to be their favorite part of the game, and just because I'm not into collecting in games doesn't mean nobody is, and I know a lot of people who are. And here's the thing, I can sit here and list things I didn't like about this game, and I can tell you I wish they were different, but at the end of the day, Lunistice is like $5 Canadian. Just playing through it from Canadian to end. Good English. Just playing through it from beginning to end without worrying about collectibles at all, I got over 2 hours of gameplay out of it. I think I'm like 2 hours 15 minutes. If you're someone who enjoys collecting stuff, you're probably gonna get a whole lot more out of it than that. It's a game that set out and became what it was trying to be almost perfectly. And who can hate that? If you played platformers during the PlayStation 1 or Sega Saturn era, you're probably gonna have a fun trip down memory lane. For 2 hours, I felt like a 10-year-old sitting in my spare bedroom playing PlayStation 1, and that's pretty cool. I enjoy that type of feeling when it lands properly. But what I think is even better about it is that Lunistice doesn't rely on nostalgia to be fun. Even if that era isn't something you have a personal connection with, Lunistice is a wonderful, simple 3D platformer with a really low barrier of entry. For me, I think the best nostalgia is when it's executed in a way that even people who aren't nostalgic for it can enjoy it, and I put Lunistice in that category. It stands on its own without the nostalgia, but the nostalgia is really nice. And I know that as I've been talking, it might sound like I have more negative than positive to say about this game, but that's really not true. The case is that Lunistice is an extremely simple platformer that feels straight out of my childhood, and it's a 10 out of 10 in how it executes that. I said that this game made me fall in love with platforming again, and that might be an exaggeration to an extent, but it is the first one in a really long time that I can say I had a great time with, and I will probably go back and play more. I don't know if it's the pace, or if it's the style, or the fact that it's essentially like a love letter to the 32-bit era, but something about it in all of its simplicity really charmed me, and I'm glad that I bought it. How do you end a video like this? Game good, guys. Play game. Game excellent. Game really fun. Game, I enjoy game. Thank you so much for watching this video. This channel is going to be uploading a lot less frequently than the main channel. I'm hoping to get to a point where it's once a week, but my plan is to be able to focus more on the reactive, in the moment, off the cuff stuff on the other channel and stop trying to get other videos in there. And then I'll bring the more scripted, planned out things over here, and this is where we'll do it. And I wanted to start with Lunistice because it's a game that I didn't really get to say as much as I wanted to about it the last time that I played it on YouTube. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed, subscribe. Peace.